So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to construct a frequency histogram as well as a frequency polygon from a set of data. Now the set of data has been nicely presented to us in a frequency table, something that we've covered in previous lessons. So how do we turn this data into a frequency histogram? Well, a frequency histogram is very similar to a column graph. Okay, so we need two axes. So I've got my y-axis. Now you'll notice how I was pausing each time. Now the reason for that is because our frequency is going to go on this y-axis. Now I know that my largest number is 8, so every 2 squares represents 1. Now this is going to be important a little bit later on. Now obviously the number of phones is going to go on our x-axis, and again using the same premise, every 2 is going to represent 1 unit. Like so. So just label this x and y. Now I'm going to put the data, okay, on the scales. So very similar to a column graph. So we're going to start at 0. Okay, leave a gap, put 0. Leave a gap, put 1. Like so. Now going up the axis, okay, again. So this is obviously going to represent 0. And leave a gap, 1. Okay, now just quickly, I'm going to label my axes. Very important, so that someone reading your graph will know what each of the axes is representing. Okay, so I've got frequency, I've got number of phones. So now we can start turning this data into the graph. So I'm going to start at 0. Okay, and it's going to go up to 2. So this is where your ruler will come in handy. So using this central line, okay, as the center of your column, you're going to draw it up to 2. Now notice how I've left a gap. Very, very important. Always leave a gap at the beginning of your x-axis. Okay, this was what makes it a histogram and not a column graph. Okay, now going up to 1, which is going to go all the way up to 7. Now all the columns from now on are going to be right up next to each other. Now notice how I'm not freehanding this. Now I don't want you guys to freehand it either. I want you to do it properly. So 2 goes up to 8. Like so. So we've turned this data into this graph. Okay, remember we will call this graph a frequency histogram. Some key points. Leave a gap. All the other columns are then right up next to each other. Okay, very, very important. Now I'm going to show you how to do a frequency polygon. Okay, now this is a very similar to a column graph. The polygon is very, very similar to a line graph, as you'll find out. So again, I'm going to use the exact same scale. Okay, again, label X and Y. Always label your axis. Okay, so we've got our grid all ready to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this data into a polygon. So again, I'm going to start at 0, okay, and go up to 2. Now rather than drawing, okay, my boxes, I'm simply going to draw a dot, or put a dot on. 1 to 7, 2 to 8, 3 to 2, and 4 to 1. Like so. Now what I'm going to do is just extend this out a little bit, okay, to incorporate 5. So the difference between a line graph and a frequency polygon is that it actually starts from this corner. Now I'm going to start from here, and using my ruler, okay, I'm going to go straight up and join the dot. Now a line graph wouldn't normally do this. You would start at this point and go up. And then from this point onwards, it's kind of like just join the dots. Okay, again, not freehanding. Remember, everything's done properly. Okay, so I'm using my ruler. Now, coming to the end, again, the line must, okay, reconnect with the x-axis. So it starts at the x-axis and comes back down to the x-axis. And this is the frequency polygon. Now, a little trick that you'll see during the exercises is that sometimes they ask you to present a frequency histogram and polygon on the graph, okay, on the one graph, instead of having it as two separates. Now, how you would go about doing this, okay, very, very simple. Put a dot, okay, in the corner, like we did, and put a dot at the center of every single column. Like so. Now all we need to do is join the dots. Now you'll notice it'll have the exact same shape as the polygon here, but we're just overlaying it or putting it on top of this frequency histogram. Like so. So we would now call this a frequency histogram and polygon, okay, because it's got the 2 in them. Now you've just got to read the questions very, very carefully. Are they asking you for just a frequency histogram where you would just draw the columns? Are they asking just for the frequency polygon where you would just join the lines? Or are they asking for a frequency histogram and polygon where you would do both on the same graph?